Sacred geometry is really an introduction to what waves do, the pattern that waves make when they cross. The geometry they make is really the only subject of physics and science. So if you really understand waves patterns deeply, you understand nature and the spiritual. Really, sacred geometry was kind of a way of teaching young people how to get interested in the physics of waves in the sense of what makes them sustainable or last forever. So the term sacred here actually means sustainability, the immortality of wave geometry. And fractality is regarded mostly as a mathematic concept which involves infinite recursion and infinite compression. What we introduced that was new about fractality is that we think we understand what a fractal electric field is. And a fractal electric field is more than just perfect compression mathematically. It's perfect compression for an electric field. And that introduces us to the second question, which is about what did we learn about spirituality and the sacred from the concept of fractal. It turns out that when in an electric field or in a wave field, when perfect compression is possible, the condensation and compression of information is also possible. So all the spiritual talk about how God is present in every little point and in the eye of a child, for example, all of that is specifically a description of where electric fields can compress the most information and presence of mind and presence of God is possible. So when an electric engineer can tell you what a fractal field is, that's new information for physics and for spirituality. Actually, in my view, there is nothing about spirituality that is not also physics. There is nothing in this description of spirituality that should not be described as physics. Even the most deeply mystical and beautiful ideas of spirituality, like the presence of the divine and the collective mind, these ideas are precisely informed by spiritual physics. So if, for example, you say, you heard voices in the collective mind and God spoke to you, most likely that happened in a place where the electric field was fractal, so the air was fractal, meaning perfect charge distribution. So access to the sacred is best understood by understanding the physics of fractal field. And once all of spirituality is understood in terms of pure, self-empowering physics, that's the end of the need for miracle worship and personality worship, all of the things that are bad about religion. Instead, what you have is self-empowerment and the understanding of pure principle, even the pure principle of surviving death. Physics is clear that the structure of DNA is based on golden ratio. The new information we added was that when the strand or the thin thread of DNA braids or embeds or nests recursively, like a thread in a string, in a rope, into a fat rope, that recursive braiding or nesting follows a ratio, an algorithm that allows electrical implosion, forming this thick and eventually toroidal strand. And as it thickens, if the geometry of the braiding is correct, it implodes, which is to say sucks in charge. And that little black hole in DNA is the physics of whether you have a soul and whether you take memory through death. We've proven that this braiding of DNA specifically electrically happens when you feel love. So if you're feeling love in your heart and your EKG measurably becomes coherent, we've measured that correlates to this thickening, the braiding of DNA. So it's literally the wave mechanics by which bliss emotion programs your DNA into this implosive fractal. And you suck in the charge, you implode the charge of your environment, and that makes your aura have very high leverage. Steer the stars, steer the clouds, fun stuff. yes, the lesson here for diet is very important. It's essential. It means that when you eat DNA, for example, wheat DNA, the wheat DNA which has been monocultured, that DNA is denatured because of monoculture. So the braiding is no longer phase coherent because harmonic inclusiveness, many frequencies present, is the same as fractality, is the same as genetic diversity. So when you lose genetic diversity, DNA stops imploding and it becomes stupid, and we call it angry DNA. So in effect, when you eat monocultured foods, you're eating stupid DNA, and that's why the wheat will cause mucus, because hundreds of generations of monoculture make the DNA fail to braid in bed coherently, fail to implode, and so your body says, ooh, that's not self, and you get mucus. So it's simple. You need vibrant genetic diversity. Think the opposite of Monsanto, and you kind of have the idea. But the physics is clear why Monsanto is wrong about genetic diversity. Because genetic diversity is what gives DNA a soul. It's very simple, and that is fractality. So it is absolutely about the diet, both the diet in terms of the charge you receive and what you eat. In both cases, we say get fractal or get dead.